The Palm Sunday story begins happily enough, with cheering crowds lining the way, people running into the streets and waving and throwing down the tree branches to make a way for their hero. Who doesn't love a parade with children dancing and people singing? A victory celebration for and by the people who have been held down for so long, compromised, people who have had to pay the spiritual price, always trying to keep the faith and to make a way to freedom while nothing changes but to get worse. So it was for the people then, year upon year, year upon weary year, nothing seems to get better for people enslaved then and now. Still, their hope would rise with every potential hero, every leader, every new political promise. With this one, too, this Jesus, hadn't he spoken of their blessedness, these poor? Hadn't he spoken of how the meek deserved more, the sorrowful, relief, the imprisoned, freedom, the forgotten, the children, that things could be different, that things would be different for these oppressed people now, people who were marching for their lives and singing. Because Palm Sunday, if it was anything at all, was certainly a non-violent protest. It was the people marching for their lives, the poor people's campaign. And it was a hopeful day indeed. But the leaders, seeing that crowd of poor people and the children marching and waving their palms, knew what they had to lose if the masses, led by this man, continued to grow. And so they said to Jesus, "Make your followers be quiet, disperse immediately." But they did not. And from that hour, the leaders began to sow fear and discord among the people and sought to destroy Jesus, for they said, "See, the entire world is going after him." For his part, Jesus gathered with some friends in a small room to observe the Passover. And after the supper, they went to a garden to pray. But he was so deep in his fear and sorrow because he knew what would lie ahead that his sweat fell in great drops, like drops of blood on the ground around him. Dr. King and Mrs. Rosa Parks, they said it was the same for them. As the relentless death threats began to come, that the fear rose in them like a great tide. And yet, as they leaned into their desperation, they found their strength was renewed. Martin said, "I had the quiet assurance of the divine more than I have ever known, an inner voice saying, 'Stand up for truth, I am by your side.' And I knew that what I was about to do was right." Rosa said, "You may kill me, but we will not stop. If you kill me, only I will be dead." Jesus too found his strength and spoke from the shadowy garden, "Let us go to meet them. Behold, my betrayer is at hand." And so after one of his friends turned him in, the authorities arrested Jesus on false accusations. And that week that had begun so happy and so victoriously had changed. The tide had turned against him, as it does The public is fickle. A mob mentality, threats and fear and disappointment, the worry of more hard times turned the people. It can happen. As the shadows of the day lengthened, they shouted for him to be killed. Then, as now, injustice was rampant, and after a sham trial that resulted in the death penalty, the authorities beat him and then led him out to be crucified. It was law enforcement brutality, capital punishment. For crucifixion, you see, was meted out on the poor and on enslaved people by the Roman Empire. It was the lethal injection of its time. Quiet friend who has come so far, feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Let this darkness be a bell tower, and you the bell. As you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. Move back and forth into the change. What is it like, such intensity of pain? If the drink is bitter, then turn yourself into wine in this uncontainable night. Be the mystery at the crossroads of the shadow and the day. Be the meaning discovered there. Then and now, every week is Holy Week. The shadow and the day are around us all the time. The children and adults and youth who are leaders and prophets and teachers and activists all over the world see the injustice, see the destruction and the lies, and they refuse to be silenced. They speak the truth. They march and work, and the suffering of the vulnerable ones is noticed. The Holy Week stories are repeated in human experience today. The palm parades may change over time, but they are forever. When people remember who they are and rise up. Empires everywhere are still threatened and send out their arsenals of distrust and divisions and doubt and destruction. Every week is Holy Week, with palm parades and hopeful children and marching feet for change, and the parades get crushed and the heroes betrayed for money, and unjust trials result in state-sponsored murder, and the powers still believe that killing finally will destroy the people. They still believe that hate can crush life and love and hope. It is an old story. In my life, in your life, in the life of the world, the sun sets and the shadows turn the world gray. But in every holy story, remember this: In every legend, in all the myths, in our lives, in every sacred moment, the story does not end in the shadows, weighty with death and unrelenting despair and grief of those who remain. The story does not end there. Remembering the Holy Week stories is to honor the life of Jesus and to honor the lives of all of us, the ones who have died and the ones who yet go on, who help us remember that no matter the cost, to walk the ways of justice and love and peace is always the invitation, and we are always being invited into the shadow and the day to see the pain of brokenness, to look upon the death and the violence, and to see and to bring the day moment by moment in the large and small ways that we may do so. A most poignant moment in the Easter narratives is a part we almost never notice. And that is the moment while it is still dark, when the women dare to come to the tomb to anoint the body, to honor what matters, and to lean into the hope to do the next right thing, no matter how large the shadows loom, no matter how heavy the stones of despair. And that is our high calling yet today, in the shadows and in the day, to offer and to receive the hope and the light in the power of love. Once Wendell Berry wrote, "A creed and a grave never did equal the life of anything. But do remember this: yellow flowers sprout in the clefts of ancient stones at the beginning of April." Amen.